Football has been around for over 150 years, and if you think modern players are soft, wait until you hear about the era when tackles were basically legalized assault and the offside rule was, well, there wasn't one. From Victorian gentlemen kicking balls in top hats to Messi bending physics with his left foot, football has evolved more than your ex's Instagram bio. Buckle up, because we're about to sprint through every single era of the beautiful game faster than Kylian Mbappe chasing a Champions League final. The Stone Age, 1863 to 1900s, when football was basically rugby with trust issues. Picture this, it's 1863 and a bunch of English schoolboys are having an identity crisis. Rugby or football? They literally couldn't decide, so they created the Football Association and said no hands. They're revolutionary stuff, right? The first official rules were wilder than a Sunday league referee's decision making. No offside rule meant you could literally camp in the opponent's goal like you're queuing for concert tickets. Players wore knickerbockers that would make your grandmother's curtains jealous, and the ball was so heavy it could knock you into next week. Teams played with formations that looked like mathematical equations. 1-1-8 was a thing. Yes, 8 forwards. Defense was apparently just a suggestion back then. The goalkeeper? He couldn't even use his hands outside the penalty area until 1912. Imagine telling Allison he can't pick up the ball at the halfway line today. The first international match was Scotland versus England in 1872, ending 0-0. Even back then, England knew how to disappoint in major tournaments. But just when you thought football couldn't get any more chaotic, along came the early 1900s with a plot twist that would make Game of Thrones jealous. The Tactical Revolution, 1900s to 1920s. When coaches discovered that defense actually exists. Welcome to the era where football finally grew a brain. The offside rule got a glow up in 1925, and suddenly players couldn't just loiter near the goal like they were waiting for a kebab. This changed everything. Formations evolved from organized chaos to actual tactical blueprints. The WM formation became the iPhone of football tactics. Everyone wanted it, everyone copied it, and it dominated for decades. Herbert Chapman at Arsenal was basically the Steve Jobs of football, revolutionizing everything from tactics to numbered shirts. Yes, before this, referees just pointed and yelled, "Oi, the handsome one who just fouled." This era birthed the first football superstars. Players like Dixie Dean, who smashed 60 goals in a season, a record that still stands much to Holland's despair. Modern strikers complaining about defensive football. Pathetic. Football was finally becoming professional, organized, and slightly less likely to kill you. The game was growing up, like a teenager who just discovered deodorant. But if you think the 1920s were revolutionary, wait until you see what happened when football met World War II and emerged with a completely new personality. The Golden Age, 1930s to 1950s. When football became art and art became football, the 1930s and 40s were football's renaissance period, minus the frescoes, plus more broken ankles. This era gave us the first World Cup in 1930, where Uruguay proved that home advantage is everything by winning on their own soil, and also because only 13 teams showed up. Then came the Hungarian Revolution, not the 1956 uprising, the one where Ferenc Puskás and the mighty Magyars turned football into a tactical slaughterhouse. They introduced the world to total football before total football was cool, demolishing England 6-3 at Wembley in 1953. It was the first time England lost at home to non-UK opposition, and it was like watching a chess grandmaster lose to a toddler with a flamethrower. The 4-2-4 formation emerged, turning scores into tennis match results. Brazil's 1970 beautiful game was still decades away, but this was the drunken genius sketch that inspired it. Meanwhile, Real Madrid was quietly building a dynasty that would make the Roman Empire look like a failed startup. 5 straight European Cups, 1956 to 1960, with Alfredo Di Stefano, a man who played football like it was a violin solo in a war zone. But poetry was about to meet percussion as the 1960s arrived with a Brazilian samba that would change football forever. The beautiful game is born, 1960s to 1970s, when Brazil taught the world how to dance with a football while everyone else tripped over their own feet. The 1960s didn't just give us the Beatles and questionable hairstyles. It gave us something actually important, the most beautiful football the world has ever seen. Brazil's 1970 World Cup team wasn't just a football team. They were what would happen if Picasso, Einstein, and David Blaine formed a boy band in yellow jerseys. Pelé wasn't just a player. He was a natural disaster with better footwork. The man scored over 1,000 goals and made it look easier than breathing, which coincidentally is what defenders stopped doing doing when he ran at them. That 1970 Brazil team played football like it was supposed to be played, with enough joy to make Disney jealous, and enough skill to make defenders question their career choices. But Brazil weren't the only ones painting masterpieces. The Netherlands looked at football and said, what if we made it a 4D chess match? Enter Total Football, where Johan Cruyff and friends played a game so fluid, defenders needed GPS to track them. Ajax dominated Europe, proving football could be both smarter than a NASA engineer and more entertaining than a clown convention. The game had evolved from boot it and pray to something resembling actual science. Players were fitter, tactics were sharper, and the football was so good even your granny would pause her knitting to watch. It was like going from cave paintings to the Sistine Chapel, except with more slide tackles and fewer popes. But just when football reached artistic perfection, the 1980s crashed the party with more drama than a soap opera and tactics that would make Machiavelli proud. The drama decades, 1980s to 1990s. When football became a Hollywood blockbuster, with worse acting and better goals. The 1980s were football's answer to a Michael Bay explosion fest. Just swap robots for mullets and add 300% more drama. This era delivered iconic moments and enough controversy to break modern Twitter. Diego Maradona's 1986 World Cup was football's greatest heist movie. The hand of God and goal of the century in the same match. That's like Jesus turning water into wine, then stealing the wine. Maradona was football's ultimate anti-hero, a genius, a trickster, and a one-man Argentine soap opera. The late 80s saw AC Milan's Dutch trio, Gullit, Van Basten, Rijkaard, turn Serie A into a tactical catwalk. Their football was so elegant it made opera look like a mosh pit. Then came the 1990s. The decade football snorted capitalism and never looked back. The Premier League, 1992, arrived, morphing football from local passion to global product. Manchester United dominated like they'd unlocked God mode, with Sir Alex Ferguson winning titles like Thanos collected Infinity Stones. But if you thought the 90s were intense, buckle up for the Millennium Era, where football met technology and the result was pure magic. The Galactico Era, 2000s to 2010s, when football became FIFA Ultimate Team and banks started sweating, the 2000s were when football went full Hollywood, if Hollywood had FIFA's financial cheat codes. Real Madrid's Galacticos weren't a team, they were a supervillain's wish list. Zidane, Ronaldo, the OG, Beckham, Figo, and Raul in the same squad. That's not sport, that's a flex so loud it broke UEFA's financial fair play calculator. But while Madrid was hoarding stars like Thanos with the Infinity Stones, Barcelona was cooking up something even scarier, Pep Guardiola's tiki-taka. This wasn't football, it was a hypnotist's act. They passed the ball so much, opponents died of boredom-induced exhaustion. Watching them was like seeing chess played by telepathic robots. Enter Messi versus Ronaldo, the debate that broke more friendships than politics. Two aliens, disguised as humans, rewriting the record books weekly. Comparing them was like arguing whether lightning is better than a tornado. Meanwhile, the Premier League became a money laundering scheme disguised as sport. The Big Six spent cash like they'd robbed Scrooge McDuck, while Chelsea and Man City proved financial fair play was really just financial fair LOL. But just when we thought football had reached its peak, along came the 2010s with enough plot twists to make a Netflix series jealous. The Modern Madness, 2010s present. When football became science fiction. Welcome to the era where football tactics are more complex than rocket science and every player needs a PhD in positioning. Guardiola's Barcelona gave way to his Manchester City, where defenders play like midfielders and midfielders play like they're conducting an orchestra. The data revolution hit football harder than a Sergio Ramos tackle. Expected goals, heat maps, and passing networks turned football analysis into mathematical equations. Scouts now need calculators more than binoculars. VAR arrived like that friend who corrects everything you say at parties. Technically right, but incredibly annoying. Goals are being ruled out for offsides measured in millimeters, making football fans everywhere question the meaning of celebration. The transfer market has gone absolutely mental. Neymar's €222 million move to PSG broke the internet and the concept of reasonable transfer fees. Now €100 million is pocket change, and your local pub team probably has a higher net worth than some countries. Kylian Mbappe runs so fast he makes the speed of light look leisurely, while Erling Haaland scores goals like he's collecting coins in a video game. The modern game is faster, more athletic, and more technical than ever before. If this whistle-stop tour through football history has left you wanting more, smash that subscribe button. Which era of football do you think was the greatest? Drop your hot takes in the comments below. I'll be reading every single one. Until next time, keep believing in the beautiful game, and remember, football is life, but it's also just 22 people chasing a ball around a field, and somehow that's the most beautiful thing in the world.